What are some downright disturbing facts you know? In the old days, poor people would sell their teeth to rich people. Lobotomies were a complete guessing game, and the procedure's success was mostly based on whether or not the patient was deemed calm and quiet post-surgery. Walter Freeman, the man who popularized lobotomies in America, wasn't even a surgeon. He had to partner with an actual surgeon to attempt the procedure. But Freeman didn't care for the length of the surgery, so he invented the ice pick lobotomy. Use an ice pick to access the brain by hammering the pick through the bone above the eye and near the nose, and then just wiggling it around. As stated before, Freeman was not a surgeon, so when the actual surgeon he partnered with walked into their shared office to find Freeman with an ice pick halfway in a patient's brain, their partnership ended immediately. But that didn't stop Freeman from continuing his work with lobotomies. He toured the nation in a van he called the Lobotomobile, offering the procedure to insane asylums with problem patients. Freeman completed over 3,000 lobotomies throughout his career, of which nearly 500 patients died, and 1,000 were left in a vegetative state. Ever thought about how whales and dolphins die? When they get too old and too weak to swim up to the surface to breathe, they start to slowly sink towards the deep, cold depths of the ocean and pass away in the dark. When the German battleship Bismarck went down after hours of constant battering, 1,500 of the 2,000 men crew were able to jump into the ocean. The Royal Navy rescued 500 of them, but left early due to lack of fuel and the threat of submarines. Over 1,000 men were left on the ocean to die, having just survived pure hell. Today the area of the wreck is littered with thousands of leather boots, having once belonged to the crew which died because they were abandoned. The average age of the crew was little over 20 years. In the early hours of September 26, 1983, a false alarm at a Soviet bunker indicated the launch of multiple American nuclear missiles. Everyone in the bunker except for one man, Stanislav Petrov, thought it was a real attack, but Petrov correctly assumed that if the USA was to launch an attack, it would have been hundreds of bombs, leading him to not tell higher-ups, who likely would have ordered a counterattack, leading to nuclear war, about the missiles, likely saving billions of lives. We've been a single person's decision away from nuclear war several times. There was a malfunction on a radar dish in the Arctic which mistook the light of the moon for a massive middle strike. It was only because of a Canadian major who realized that Khrushchev was in New York, so a strike was highly unlikely. During World War II, Japan attacked China with fleas infected with the bubonic plague. When your immune system recognizes that you have eyes, you'll turn blind, and there's nothing you can do about it. But why though? Normally your immune system doesn't know about your eyes, so when it finds out you have them, it thinks there's something it needs to fight, like a virus or foreign body, so you're blinding yourself. In the 1940s, before the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima, the US made around 1.5 million Purple Hearts in anticipation of casualties. Since the bombings occurred, there was quite a surplus of hearts left over, thus some of those very hearts are still given out to this day. I was cleaning the garage with my mom shortly after my dad passed away, and I found a very long, very sad breakup letter from my dad to my mom dated July 2nd, 1985. I asked her about it, what happened, and she kind of chuckled and went, "Oh, we got everything sorted out the next day, and we're back together again." I was born 9 months later on April 1st, 1986. I was the product of a hookup, and had the letter in my hand that started the events of my existence. An admiral in the British Navy was eliminated by firing squad for not doing his utmost when ordered to claim the island of Minorca. Admiral Byng discovered the island had already been claimed by a French fleet and decided to turn his men around to save their lives rather than sail into suicide. Britain couldn't admit that France beat them to it and blamed the loss of Minorca on the admiral and sentenced him to die. They used newspaper comics and propaganda to spread misinformation about the admiral's incompetence to get the public behind his execution. Basically, this guy died because of nationalism. There's a new analysis of his career and death which was a part of why, recently, the Byng name cleared and the admiral was given back his honor. Most men receive their first flowers on their funeral. During World War II, Imperial Japan operated prisoner transports known colloquially as hell ships, as the name implies. conditions aboard them were downright atrocious. Prisoners were crammed into steaming hot, unventilated cargo holds to the point that it was basically standing room only. Food and water was incredibly sparse, there were no bathroom facilities, and abuse from the guards was commonplace. Death from starvation, infection, dysentery, dehydration, and so on was common, and more suffered from delirium due to the conditions. Many of these ships were sunk during the war, and oftentimes the vast majority POW cargo would be unable to escape and go down with the ships, the worst being Juni Meru, sunk by the submarine HMS Tradine with 5,620 POWs and slave laborers, though the Japanese gave no indication that these ships were carrying POWs, and them also transporting soldiers and military equipment made them valid targets. In 1972 a plane crashed in the Andes on a snowy mountain. 16 of the 45 people, mostly guys of a rugby team from Uruguay, survived there for 72 days. They had to eat the people who died during or after the crash in order to survive. No one knew where the plane crashed exactly, and they were only found because 2 of the guys walked for 10 days over the mountains and down into a valley where a farmer found them. They found a camera in the luggage and took photos of themselves. Most of them are online and you can even see parts of the bodies laying around. I don't recommend looking them up if you're really sensitive. The US government was exposed for illegally spying on its citizens through their webcams in 2013 and no one even really cared or did anything about it. They mostly just called the dude who did it Edward Snowden a traitor. So it's still probably happening. Orcas show more cruelty towards other animals than any other species except for humans. They will torture seals for hours on end, eventually drowning it, biting off its head, and then throwing it at each other as a sort of volleyball game. They'll also knock seals off of the chunk of ice they're resting on using waves created by their tails. They'll then wait for it get back onto the ice shelf, then do it again. This has happened for hours before they drown it and do the text above to it. They will also smack fish up to 100 feet in the air, breaking every bone in its body for fun. We believe it's for fun, because they don't touch it afterwards. Not a single bite for food whatsoever. There's also at least one documented case of an orca murdering a moose that was traveling between islands. Humans are the one exception, excluding captive ones that always end up having mental problems for obvious reasons, that orcas never seem to have extreme cruelty towards for seemingly no reason. I think it's because they see themselves in us, as we are also monsters. Also there are cases where, if a shark sees a single orca, it will not return to that area for at least 1 year. An adult blue whale's veins are so large that a small child can not only fit, but swim through them, if you make them. The last reactor in the Chernobyl power plant was shut down in the year 2000. There are people in Manila, Philippines who are literally scrounging for food scraps on a hill of garbage to recook and sell it. Locals call it pag, meaning to brush off the dirt. Male squid fertilize female squid eggs by implanting a sac full of sperm into a cavity or oviduct on or near the female's face. Varies by species, for extraction and use later. Females of some species eat and snack on these sperm, so it is in the best interest of the males to bury the sac as deep as possible. That's not the disturbing part. The disturbing part is that there have been multiple instances of people eating calamari sashimi style or cooked, but not cooked enough, apparently, and immediately feeling a stinging sensation in their mouth / cheek / tongue / whatever. It turns out, the squid wasn't entirely dead and it successfully implanted sperm sacs in the person's tongue / cheek / whatever, requiring medical intervention for extraction. I don't eat calamari these days. There is a popular Mexican dish called pozole, and it originated from the Aztecs who used human sacrifice as a protein in the soup. When Spaniards came and conquered, they were no longer allowed to use human meat as the protein, so they switched to pork, which is said to taste the closest to human flesh.